I do think that Sussex Overdrive is unbelievable, but I mean, I don't think that he is going to get back in, which showed that he is very commercially minded, which we'll get into later on, which makes it impossible for him. And of course, Meghan wouldn't come back to Britain. Harry and Meghan, the other side, smiling and all the rest of it, is that Meghan has got no real income anymore. She's finished.
Right.
The Netflix series is over. There's no great podcast. They don't generate any money. And I don't see where she is going from here. I think she has a major problem. It was Meghan speaking, and now we know it's Meghan speaking again. And so this isn't because the book contains that her brand was in great trouble. American Riviera Orchard, that she had allegedly nicked the idea. She wanted wealth and she wanted fame. And she targeted, there's no doubt she targeted Harry. And that was very critical because at that moment last year, she was about to promote her Netflix series and didn't want to firstly be seen with Harry, and secondly didn't want to go somewhere where she'd appear cheap. Declining, I think that his reputation is somewhat toxic, and I think Invictus is his only lifeline, and that's what she used as a weapon at the time. So there were quite a few things about her personal life. I'll work them into another book, I think. Meghan didn't like the surname Mountbatten Windsor. If you remember, in her first lifestyle series with Meghan with Them Forever, she says to Carling that her surname isn't Markle but Sussex. And she was desperate to get it. She said, we never had a proper surname. Of course they did. By not telling the palace what she's going to do. And I think the most interesting story is the Reitman story. Reitman's is like a Marks and Spencer's in Canada.
In Revenge, you talk about how Meghan's lack of knowledge about British history meant she could not understand that Diana had won the public's affection.
She was warned before she married what the nature of being Harry's wife and part of the royal family would be, and the nature of how she ignored all that advice for two reasons. One is she really did believe she could do what she wanted, and secondly, I don't believe she ever intended to stay. She always intended to take the title, take the connections, and get back to California.
Sometimes a public image breaks, not just cracks, and that shattering has already started. According to Tom Bauer, once portrayed as a misunderstood icon, Meghan Markle is currently experiencing a terrible breakdown. Evidence, not sentiment or indignation. Evidence that screams rather than whispers. The most damning confirmation to date was just released by Bauer, one of the most dreaded biographers in existence.
Suit Meghan's agenda, and Meghan's living with Meghan is very different than living with Kate and William. Meghan has a completely different attitude, and I think California has a different attitude. So I think we're now seeing a different Harry, and to his misfortune, it is not a Harry that appeals to the same sort of people in the same numbers as previously.
Meghan told the world for years about personal anguish, royal injustice, and a harsh palace that rejected her. But a question is more pressing than ever when her Netflix agreements fall through and Spotify severs ties. Was it all genuine? The truth is finally catching up, according to Tom Bauer. Furthermore, what he discloses is devastating rather than just uncomfortable.
What Meghan never really understood, probably not even now, is that when she was chaired as a working royal, it wasn't because she was Meghan Markle, it was because she represented British.
Bauer claims that Meghan did more than simply distort the facts. She gave it a makeover. She rewrote history rather than merely telling tales. She erased her background, exploited pity as a weapon, and monetized royalty.
But I've got to tell you, my research for my new book, the number of times she was warned before she married what the nature of being Harry's wife and part of the royal family would be, and the nature of how she ignored all that advice. For two reasons. One is she really did believe she could do what she wanted.
And it all starts with a single, straightforward fact. She had no intention of staying. According to Bauer, Meghan initially viewed the royal title as a springboard rather than a commitment. Tradition was not the aim, it was a change. Meghan had no desire to become a queen. Her goal was to establish herself as a brand. Truth also becomes optional when developing a brand. It wasn't merely ambition though, it was computation. According to Bauer, one of the most egregious betrayals is the lead incident. Only her closest relatives used the Queen's childhood moniker. Before they even told her the baby's name, Meghan and Harry trademarked it. It's a marketing ploy, not a tribute or a surprise.
It's money. Meghan's very commercial. She doesn't want to be poor. And then having got all that, she then saw how she needed a consort, a husband who was going to take her to the next stage. And she was on a manhunt, there's no doubt. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being on a manhunt. There are women hunts too, but I mean, she was determined.
Additionally, the palace did something it hardly ever does when Harry said they had permission. It intervened and made it clear to the BBC that he had lied. The Queen was enraged. The palace remained unwavering. No one misheard the truth. It was contrived. And the deception didn't stop there. Hardship, lonely childhoods, inexpensive meals, and emotional scars were the foundation of Meghan's brand. However, Bauer discloses that the truth was quite different. Private education, acting lessons, and fancy clothing were all funded by her father, Thomas Markle.
She's desperate to be seen.
Yeah.
And that's why she turned up. So I think she has a major problem, financially and professionally. And I think that Harry has a.
He drove her to auditions, paid for her college education, encouraged all of her aspirations, and never once rejected her. However, Meghan deleted him when that version of the truth about Meghan's childhood did not fit her desired picture. Her meticulously constructed origin tale replaced the man who raised her when he became an issue. Bauer discovers a detail that puts an end to it all. The well-known Procter & Gamble ad? Meghan says her advocacy began at that very moment. Bauer, however, claims it never took place. No letters, no records. Her father doesn't even recall mailing it. It was a myth that had been updated to suit a new story. Meghan would repeatedly follow this pattern. The Oprah interview followed. The world stage. The emotionally charged, softly lit rebranding that was meant to silence critics and change their legacy. However, Bauer dismantles it rather than merely questioning it. 17 contradictions. Facts, not opinions.
To create her own brand and image in the whole Netflix series of lifestyle series. She was told she had to give up being the Wicked Witch in terms of the royal family. She should put that all behind her and not mention them because people want to see her, not all the time complaining. She couldn't resist because in the end, one of Meghan's many deficiencies is she has nothing to say. There's no originality.
There is no uniqueness there. Meghan asserted that 3 days prior to the ceremony, she and Harry were secretly wed. Canterbury's Archbishop openly rejected it. She hinted that Archie's race prevented him from receiving a title. Bauer clarifies that the regulations had nothing to do with skin color and were written long before she joined the family. Additionally, the palace presented documents demonstrating that doctors, staff, and resources were always available when she claimed she was turned away during a mental health crisis. The interview didn't reveal anything. It was a show. However, Bauer claims that Meghan's most fatal error was thinking the applause was for her. The duo was welcomed by enthusiastic audiences throughout their tour of Australia. They were praised in headlines. Although the images appeared perfect, the staff's actions behind the scenes revealed a different story.
She has to fight for the spotlight. She has to fight to be seen, and being seen is critical to her. And she can't, if there's another shooting, she can't fly there as she did.
Not because it's painful, but because
they described Meghan as acting like a Hollywood diva, throwing tea, snapping at assistants, and demanding adjustments mid-tour. Rather than being a supporting royal, she saw herself as the next Diana. The primary event.
But I don't want to do that. And the other thing is, I've done nothing wrong. There's nothing that points to me and says I'm a bad guy. As a matter of fact, I'm a really loving father, and she knows that. And there's no excuse for her to treat me this way. No excuse to treat the king that way as well.
And she made a decision after realizing that she would always be ranked lower than Catherine. She would not participate in the system. From the outside, she would demolish it. The subsequent betrayal did not take place in public. It took place covertly. Harry and Meghan stood next to William and Catherine at the Queen's funeral, taking condolences while feigning a desire for reconciliation. But nobody, not even William, knew.
She gets into one of the best university colleges of America, Northwestern, because of her education and background. So by no means anything other than a happy childhood, although a broken.
Was that their attacks on Netflix had already been documented. After hours of editing, the charges were finalized in the can. Harry grinned for the cameras while the world grieved, well aware of what was going to be made public.
And of course, they're not allowed to come to the dinner after the wedding. I mean, people whom he'd known for years. And even at the wedding of Tommy Inskip in Jamaica, one of the parents who was there told me that Meghan had behaved appallingly. They just couldn't understand why Harry was going out with her. She didn't like the food, she didn't like them.
Bauer refers to it as the highest form of deception. Not sorrow, not miscommunication, not tactics. Furthermore, Meghan's fascination with Diana went beyond symbolic. The stances, the jewelry, and the attire are all deliberate. However, Bauer discloses something even more unsettling.
But in Harry's view, this was his mother all over again. What Meghan never really understood, probably not even now, is that when she was...
According to reports, Meghan and Harry asked Diana's brother, Earl Spencer, if they may use the Spencer last name for their family as branding, rather than as a tribute. In order to closely connect with Diana's legacy, they desired to leave Mountbatten Windsor and become the Spencers. The request was immediately turned down. The lesson is that you cannot inherit Diana's radiance by copying her gloom.
Meghan believed she was as important to the monarchy as Princess Diana, you write in the book. And her visit to Australia in October 2018 only boosted that view. The more Harry drew parallels with his mother, and the more Meghan must have been convinced of her importance to the monarchy. Do you still think she's that deluded?
The world started to take notice as the narrative kept coming apart. Hollywood took a step back. Calls were no longer answered by publicists. Cooperation stalled. Due to widespread outcry, Spotify terminated its podcast agreement. Future ideas were cooled by Netflix. Impact reports from Archwell decreased.
And what I really thought at the end of it as well was this, which I think is a very, very pertinent point. When they came across for the Queen's funeral, and there was that amazing scene outside the castle of meeting the well-wishers in the walk, there was always talk of reconciliation. Charles and William and Kate go one side, Harry and Meghan the other side, smiling and all the rest of it. But at that time, William didn't know that Harry and Meghan had already recorded their poison for Netflix. It was already edited. All the stuff that we heard today about Charles lying, about William screaming and shouting, was in the can, was being edited. And they duplicitly did not reveal what...
And approval ratings are at an all-time low in the US, the UK, and even Australia. The story lost its appeal, and the sympathy ran out.
In Meghan's mind, she is Diana.
Yes.
I mean, Diana Spencer is Meghan Spencer. And that was all part of her imagination, that somehow she could inherit the glow of her dead mother-in-law. So I think that was another reason for Charles.
Bauer renders a brutal verdict. He claims that mistakes were not the reason of Meghan's collapse. Patterns are to blame. She didn't simply make a poor choice. She repeatedly made the same poor choice. Change the past. Put the blame elsewhere. Act like the victim. Then keep doing it until the truth can no longer be avoided.
When she phoned up the two senators to campaign for women's maternity pay, she said, hello, this is Meghan the Duchess of Sussex.
Yeah.
I mean, she plays the royal card the whole time. So I don't think that would play well in the election for Congress or even the Senate. So I think they've got to realign their image. I mean, I think in any case, they're burning out their royal status pretty fast now.
The deals with the media have ended. The Palace Bridge has caught fire. The general people has stopped paying attention. And the I was wronged card, which she always used, is no longer functional. However, the harshest reality of all...
I think they've got a real identity crisis, which will be resolved in the next few months, one way or another. And I don't think it can be to the good. But the point about it is, you see, they're notorious.
Bauer claims that neither the public, the press, nor even the royal family are Meghan's greatest adversaries. It's because she created a whole brand around a version of herself that was unable to withstand reality.
And she wanted the cover and control of the content, and they had a huge argument. And that meant that he was really finished with her. He'd had enough of her prima donna behavior, and that's why he's dumped her. But also, I mean, from his point of view, what does she now bring? There isn't anything original. There's no great sales point there. And I think you've got to look at something else. You mentioned at the beginning the Sam.
Furthermore, There is nothing left to defend the reputation she built now that the truth has been revealed, because the mask cannot be put back on once it has slipped. And what follows could be even worse than the